like there are players who love that. They're like, that's amazing. But the stakes are so high, and that's a time when you use it. If I say that to somebody and they're like, whoa, that's horrible, I don't want to permanently die, I like my character, that's when you definitely do it. You double down. You say, no, I'm killing you. I'm turning you to ash.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Ellie Odie.
I'm Jared Bornigal.
And I'm Will Meldon.
And on this episode, we are taking a look at the Ashen Rider. These are a monster stat block in the Mythic Odyssey of Theros, but they could easily be taken and used in any setting, and so we're going to talk about how to do that, go through the stat block, how to use them. They're a really cool challenge rating 16 monster that we haven't heard much of, and I think they could be really cool fights, so we'll just dive right into it.
Well, no, I'm sorry. Before we dive into anything, for video watchers, this needs to be addressed. Will's background has been changed. It has been the same since we started recording, I believe. I mean, we're at, 2 years now since we switched to the YouTube format? So, Will, you got to tell us, what prompted the change?
As you can see, I'm traveling.
Okay, so you're currently in a ship now. So this is your...
The hull of an old-timey ship with cannons. Okay.
Air costs are too much these days. I've taken up with the pirate crew.
It's probably more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, I'm glad they have good enough Wi-Fi as well that you can still record today.
Starlink.
Oh no.
All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay. So the Ashen Rider, as said, is specifically in the Mythic Odyssey of Theros and has some lore in there, which I'll cover real brief. They're Archons. The Archon Empire was all through Theros, and they were kind of like evil rulers of the land. I'm not super familiar with Theros lore, but the Ashen Riders are ones that left and were basically turned from horrors down into it's what sounds like their version of hell, and came back to the world as Ashen Riders, and they have no mercy for immortal life. They are lawful evil, just looking to destroy people, take things over. There's not a whole lot about the specific lore. Is there anything you guys wanted to add there?
No, I mean, it's just, does mention they're mysterious conquerors, or at least the Archons were mysterious conquerors, saw themselves as merciless champions of merciless justice, ruled with an iron fist. I think the one thing that's really interesting to me is the fact that these are celestials, but they are lawful evil. That's something that you generally don't see. We often talk about how there's a pretty big lack of celestials and a lack of reason to fight celestials. Like 90% of the time, if you're fighting a celestial, you're the bad guy. This is a time where that is not the case. So regardless of lore, I just really like that aspect.
Yeah. Specifically, I think the Ashen Riders are lawful evil because they made their way to the underworld as the Archon Empire fell. And there it says, the horrors of the place broke their minds, bodies, and spirits and twisted them into a terrifying Archons known as Ashen Riders. So I think that's why they've been kind of broken.
Yeah. And so you get this like corrupted angel aspect that is really, I won't say like the most unique idea ever, but it's pretty unique in terms of stat blocks. We don't see that very often.
Right. But there's no reason you have to follow this lore. No reason they have to be in Theros very easily. You could take these Ashen Riders, pluck them in whatever world you're in. You could even keep the same lore. I mean, I think most D&D worlds have some version of hell. And these are angels that wound up in there for whatever reason and became corrupted and came back to wipe out the mortal world and spread hate and violence wherever they go.
I also always love the like without even going into hell and being corrupted by outside influences, that idea, the idea of just an angel that is turning against what is kind of expected of an angel, the angel that has realized that, humanity is holding us back and we've been trying to serve them for as long as we have. And why are we doing that? We need to wipe them out. I mean, wasn't that like half the plot of Dogma, the Kevin Smith movie from like the mid-90s?
I haven't seen that in so long.
Okay, it's free on YouTube.
That was the plot of Dogma.
Okay. Thank you. So it's a good trope. I don't know how frequently it's used, but I'll just say I really like that angle of just angels kind of, we'll say, coming to their senses, at least how they view it.
Right.
So a couple different angles you can go for.
Yeah. Also get the Black Riders from Lord of the Rings. I'm blanking
Yes.
on what their official name is. Like there's the Witch King and
All
his
of our
riders.
nerd cards are being taken away by not knowing this
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm
Nazgul?
completely blanking. I do know it if I hear it. It's like, oh
Nazgul.
yes, of
That's
course. No, the Nazgul are what they ride, isn't it?
oh dang it.
I think
Yeah, that's
that's
their mount.
yeah.
Yeah.
Leave a comment telling
Well,
us how horrible we are for forgetting some
right.
Lord of the Rings lore. There's a
But
lot
these
more to
guys
forget
give
up here.
these guys definitely give me that vibe, and I think you could probably take a lot of inspiration from that of why they exist in your world. Maybe the villain of your campaign uses them for their bidding, and these are really strong mini bosses. They just rip off Lord of the Rings. You have to run away from them from the beginning to get strong enough to take them on.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean
it
there's
doesn't matter. It would be fun to play.
it would be, and it would be like just like kind of a could be a constant thing that the party has to deal with, especially when they are lower levels. As long as you
Right.
give them opportunities to escape, and you would need to give them ample opportunity to escape. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, you really have to design it so that there's like a thing they do. You can't be like, all right, start running. Because
I mean, that's when you can utilize
rivals
things
lions.
like right, and that's when you can utilize things like powerful NPCs. The whole, I'll hold them back mentality. I mean, your party's not going to
Right.
fight that too much, but you get to potentially remove a powerful PC, create an emotional moment, all of those things. It's there's reasons to do it until the
Yeah.
Ashen Rider banishes them, and then nope, party still is by themselves.
Right. Yeah, that's always a good way to kind of telegraph how strong an enemy is. That like, hey, you are not ready for these things. Have the party interact with an NPC, fight them. Maybe it's friendly and it's a training type thing. You can have a fight with them, and this NPC destroys the party. Doesn't kill them, obviously. And then the monster, in this case, the Ashen Rider, shows up and destroys the NPC. That's like a very clear. It's like, okay, we are absolutely not ready for that fight. That's a way to tell your players you need to run without just telling them you need to run.
Yeah, yeah, much
Because
easier.
sometimes that can be
Well,
a little, yeah. It's not
more fun to
easier,
do
but
that.
it's more immersive and more poignant. It lands better than just like saying, "Hey, pulling back the veil here. If you fight these things, you're gonna die, and I don't want that to happen." Which sometimes you need to do, and that's totally cool. Like, because it is a game, you just want people to have fun, and so you just make it gamey every once in a while. But if you could do it narratively, I think it will last better. Then these become this constant fear and threat over the party, and a goal to get strong enough to take them on. And then there's that interesting internal dilemma within the party of when are they strong enough to take these things on? Because like
I
these aren't
think
super common monsters that everyone's going to have a sense of where they're at. So it's kind of a guess.
I think in terms of needing to pull back the veil and just be like perfectly frank with your players is usually when they're newer and not used to that idea of running is an option. Once that's established, maybe they'll get it from the way that you talked about telegraphing it. But I could very well see a new party being like, well, we're the heroes of the story, so of course we're going to be able to handle it. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. Wrong game.
Right.
Well, let's get
Okay.
into the stat
Thematically, I
blocks.
I
do
was
want to
gonna
say
s-
one
Oh,
thing with that.
Oh, oh,
It's there is this big contrast sometimes with what a thing looks like and what it can do. And this is, for all intents and purposes, just a medium dude in armor. There's
I don't
nothing
know. He's got a sickle
spectacular.
though.
Okay, it's big, it's scary, but it's like, oh, it's just like an advanced town guard. Where it's not, and the only thing that distinguishes that is the giant lion that rides. So you do have
right.
to warn them a little bit of these abilities.
Right, which again could be from NPC that's with you, or just the player getting a history check, or you just sometimes you need to give the party information and you don't want to rely on a roll for it. So you just say, like, oh, you have heard about this because you're a cleric and you've studied, the underworld more than somebody else. So this is an Ashen Rider. They're big, they're bad, they're scary. They've destroyed towns, like things like that. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is a little much for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go about it. So yeah, we've been talking about a lot of why they're so strong and why low level parties need to avoid them. So let's get into why. They are challenge rating 16, medium celestials, lawful evil, armor class of 18, and 178 hit points, which right off the bat does feel a little low. And I feel like we keep running into that recently. Like these monsters, these stat blocks are supposed to be really hard, and their hit points just don't quite line up. Because that challenge rating 16, you could blow through that pretty fast.
Yep.
but
Probably
we'll
in
keep
like 3
going.
turns.
Yeah, we'll keep going. We can circle back to that. Speed of 30 feet. That's by themselves. They're generally going to be mounted, and then, of course, have the mounted speed. And we will cover the mounts. They're not too complicated. Strength of 20, Dex of 16, Constitution of 19, Intelligence of 15, Wisdom of 21, and Charisma of 18. So excellent stats across the board. And then a bunch of saving throws of Strength plus 10, Constitution plus 9, Wisdom plus 10, and Charisma plus 9. So coming out strong out the gate. A lot of saving throws. Going to be hard to get spells off on them and things like that. They do have some skills of History plus 7, Insight plus 10, and Perception plus 10. Nothing super combat related, but skills generally aren't. These are the type of things like they speak all languages. They're intelligent. Intelligence 15. You could have conversations with them. You can make them more interesting than just like a stat block to fight to hunt them down. And these skills could possibly come in handy then. They're completely immune to thunder damage. That one stood out as weird for me. Do you guys have any insight on that?
I do not. Maybe there's more to the archons as a whole, but nothing in the immediate stat block or lore description talks much about why thunder in particular would be immune.
Yeah, and I read the Archon section of Theros, and it didn't mention that either. There's one other Archon snap block, but we're not covering it today. I wonder if they also have thunder damage. Maybe I missed something in there because I didn't read through that. Anyways, and then condition immunities to Charmed, Exhaustion, and Frightened. They have True Sight out to 120 feet and Passive Perception at 20, so hard to sneak up on, hard to hide from, hard to track. As I mentioned, language is all. They have an aura of silence. When a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of the Ashen Rider, the Rider can force the creature to make a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw if the Rider can see it. On a success, the creature is immune to this aura for the next 24 hours. On a fail, the creature can't speak and is deafened until the start of its next turn. So for your fighters, your barbarians, your monks, probably not going to matter too much. For your spellcasters, this is obviously a very big problem because any spell that requires a verbal component, it shuts down. And this is not a reaction. This is not a bonus action. It just happens. DC 18 Wisdom Save isn't crazy high for challenge rating 16, but it's very common to have casters that don't have high wisdom. There obviously are the wisdom casters that will probably be okay, but like the low wisdom wizard is pretty tropey. I can see that being a problem with them. Same with like bards,
warlocks. I think
warlocks.
wizards, they get proficiency in wisdom saving throws, don't they?
Intelligence, wisdom, probably.
I think it's intelligence and wisdom. So, still likely that, intelligence and wisdom. So, still likely that you're right. They don't have like a super high wisdom, but, they can pass it. It's not like it's making a barbarian make a charisma saving throw or something.
Right.
But still, it is super debilitating, and this is the type of thing that can make the fight really swingy, where if all of the casters fail this right from the start, then once they leave that radius, it doesn't go away. They have to... Oh, I'm sorry, it's only until the start of its next turn. So really, if they need to keep a distance and do some ranged attacks, most things that are dangerous within 30 feet are probably dangerous within 60 feet as well. So I take this back immediately. I was like about to go on some whole spiel, but that until the start of its next turn kind of kills this for me. This goes from potentially being
the save is
fight
at the start of the creature's turn. So they do like kind of have a turn being silenced.
Sure.
There are a lot of spells that don't need verbal ways to get around it. So I don't see it as too debilitating of an effect. I would almost rather see it as like on the Ashen Rider's turn. It sends out like a pulse of silence, and anything, I wouldn't even do it to 60 feet, gets silenced until the Ashen Rider's next turn. And then
that way it can affect more than... Actually, what's your thought there? Why would it matter if it's on the Ashen Rider's turn instead of the spellcasters?
So then if somebody's silenced for a round, which I guess it would be anyways, but more about this thing that kind of constantly always is just happening.
Okay.
Yeah,
my usual
extended out
issue...
to 60 feet. I don't know.
No, my usual issue always comes down to this whole the creature is immune to this aura for the next 24 hours. And that's just like the frightened condition or the whatever it is on the dragons that we always talk about,
Hmm.
frightening presence. That to me just kind of it takes this from being like a constant thing that could be very scary to like you pass one save or everybody passes it on the first turn and then it's like, oh, okay, that cool thing's just not going to show up this fight. So I'm like usually a fan of just taking that away. You kind of need to be careful. Like maybe you drop the DC a little bit to match. So it's, DC 16. And that way you don't feel as bad about forcing them to make the save every single time. Just some little ways to tweak it. And then I do think the 60-foot radius as well is necessary because once you get to 60, that's when spell range really starts to come into play. There's definitely ones that are 120 feet. Don't get me wrong, you can find some, but you're going to start limiting the spellcasters compared to a 30-foot radius. I just don't feel like you're limiting too many spells.
Yeah, just having them stand far enough back.
Yeah.
You mean, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Like you could stand
It
35 feet away, and then anything that has a range of 35 feet and more, which usually would be 60 feet or more, then you're fine.
right. It can be used to split up parties, like keep spellcasters on the outside. You have all the fighters on one side of the, like maybe they're in the aura and fighting. Yeah, I guess if they're in the aura, then just casters aren't too far. I was thinking people not wanted to stay in the aura and be on opposite sides, and then they're pretty far apart.
Yeah, but there's no
But
punishment for just like going through the aura in some fashion.
right, yeah, and it's just when they start the turn, so they could even start the turn outside of it and then enter it,
That's a
do whatever
very
they
good
need, and
point.
leave. Yeah, that's why I think I'd like to see it put on the Ashen Rider. At the start of the Ashen Rider's turn, it pulses out that aura of 60 feet. Get rid of the 24-hour immune period.
And honestly, I think it's smoother to run. I don't
Yeah,
love when things are at the start of a creature's turn because now you have to remember every single time, are you within 30 feet? And then before the person even starts, which is a lot of times where people kind of slow down with combat. It's like, hey, it's your turn. Great. Oh no, I need to figure out what I need to do. And it's like, okay, before you even do that, let's see if you're 30 feet away. Okay, yes, you are. Make a save for me. Compared to Ashen Rider's turn starts, Pulse goes out, everybody roll a wisdom saving throw who's within 60 feet, and we move on with our lives.
right. Yeah, then the players will have more of a time to look through their spells and so to keep combat moving.
Oh, that's a
Um,
very good point. I wasn't even articulating that, but that is a very good point as
right.
well. Just the fact that somebody might have a idea of what they want to do, and then, oh, sorry, you just shut down your turn because it has a verbal component, and now you can't cast that spell.
Yeah. Also, thematically, I think it just makes more sense. An aura of silence, but only if they start their turn there, which means they, like as I mentioned, start their turn outside of it, run into the aura, do a bunch of crap, cast spells in there, and leave it, and nothing happens. That's not
Yeah.
an aura. That's not how that works. It's just weird.
That said,
Where
with
if you like make it like pulse of silence and then
there you go. I would
silence wave, yeah,
say the change proposed would need a name change as well. Very important to the rest of what we're talking about. It would have to be pulse of silence or wave of silence. Yep.
right,
It's no longer an aura.
yeah. So over, I like it. I think it's a neat feature. Just I think it could use some tweaking, or
Yeah.
even if you want to keep it real simple tweaking, just add an additional line when a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of the Ashen Rider or enters that space for the first time on its turn. That's usually what most of those 8-weeks do.
Yeah, plenty of ways to
This
tweak
one
it based
just
on what you're trying to accomplish,
yeah,
like making it extra hard, making it something that is showing up for the entirety of the fight, or just making it just a little bit better. It would be adding that rider.
right. Okay, but moving on. They have innate spellcasting. This is pre Monsters of the Multiverse, so it's kind of the older design thing. Where spellcasting is its own thing. Casting any of these is a full action. They have their Wisdom spellcasters, spell save DC of 18. At will, they can cast Command and Compel Duel, and once a day each Banishment and Blade Barrier. All solid spells when needed. I don't like how it's their entire turn for like a command as like a bonus action or part of their multi attack would be really really cool and
Yeah,
thematic and makes sense at challenge rating 16. I think. Whereas it stands now, it is their entire action.
they don't even have a chance to cast a spell as a legendary action. which you see a lot of times with
Right.
if they have spells. Blade Barrier is definitely worth an entire action.
That
Banishment,
is.
probably, honestly. Um,
Hmm.
but yes, I agree. I mean, just being able to replace one of the attacks with a spell that would make this much better.
Right. Yeah, Blade Barrier being it's a wall spell, as works out as all the other ones, like 5 foot thick wall, and you can like kind of change it how you want, make a dome. And when creatures pass through it, it's something like 60 10 slashing damage. And it's 3/4 cover.
What I love
Between
about
us,
that
so
too
it's
is it
pretty
says
cool.
the wall provides 3/4 cover to creatures behind it, and its space is difficult terrain, which to me means you have 3/4 cover, but it doesn't go both ways, basically.
Okay, so start out combat by just the Ashen Rider centers it on themselves as the dome,
Yes.
and they stand inside of it because they do have ranged attacks.
Yep.
There
So
we
they
go.
could just
Okay.
toss some bolts of ashes out.
Right, and the Aura of Silence, and especially if we upgrade it to the 60-foot Pulse of Silence, shuts down spellcasters a bit, so they can't really get through too much.
Yeah.
And all their
You can get
crazy
mean with
saves
this.
anyways. Yeah. Right.
A challenge rating
Challenge rating
16.
16 is the time to get mean. Like your party's
Yep.
been around for a while, probably.
And it's
They
time
know
to
what they're
end that.
doing. Right.
That's just
um,
so. I hate that so much. Like,
That's
it's
the
just
plan.
so lame. But what I like the idea of it using this to create like a arena, because it has compelled duels, so that kind of implies that it wants to duel. But compelled duel sucks. So this is a way to compel a duel in a more thematic and interesting way by creating an arena of spinning knives that you can't escape.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of scenarios where you could make that maybe even part of a character's. I don't want to say their backstory, but just like if one character is singled out by an Ashen Rider, the reasons of which really depend on the lore that you establish for an Ashen Rider. But if they're like an emissary of the gods, and your party has, or a player in particular has messed with the gods in any way, Ashen Rider is a great one to send, and then you can have them kind of do this compelled duel. And in that case, it would be a really interesting start to a fight, because let's say they wrap up the fighter into this blade barrier, and you've got this duel starting, and it's going to be very tough for the fighter to survive. And by the way, when I'm saying this, I'm talking about like very high level. This is like probably level 14 and up that you could even consider stuff like this. But then you have the rest of the party outside. They have to try and get through this blade barrier, dealing with the aura of silence or wave of silence, as we just talked about. And that'd be like a really fun first 3 rounds of combat, as the fighter's like, oh crap, like I am stuck in here. I can't get out, and my party can't come in and help me. And then once that is down the blade barrier, you almost get this satisfying second stage of the fight, where you can kind of feel the tension start to decrease a little bit, as you can actually help and tip things back into the player's favor, potentially, or they die.
right. And yeah, it is worth noting Blade Barrier is concentration. So it
Yes.
does have the potential to end early.
Yeah, but with a con +9,
Yeah, it's
it's not impossible, obviously, but it's
no.
going to take a little bit to get through that.
Right. These I think could be used as a souped up revenant. You're talking about if there's like some reason why they're going after one party member. Like
Yeah.
revenant, there are revenants and they have a stat block, and if I remember correctly, they're a bit on the lower side. So if you wanted to do a higher one, especially if it was like a powerful enemy someone in your party killed, or your party in general killed, and they come back as a revenant, just make them an Ashen Rider. Obviously, don't call them that, but then they're hunting down the party. They have the flying mounts. They have the ways to compel duel and the blade barriers to trap them, and I think they would work really well as a revenant. And they're like powerful and spooky, and just kind of seem to be ever present and ever advancing.
Yeah, you could go with
I think
like
that could work well.
it's so I would probably not do the revenant aspect of once you kill them they come back, because that's
No,
its own thing. And if you really wanted to, you could, but I wouldn't do that. I would just do this where they basically escaped from hell and they came back to get to your party. And you said, maybe don't call them Ashen Riders. I mean, that's a pretty good name in my opinion. Like if
It
you don't
is,
have
yeah.
the established lore of the Archons and all of that, like you just say like, oh no, it's a mythical Ashen Rider, somebody who's so angry they rise from the depths of hell and seek their vengeance against those who wronged them. It's like, okay, yeah, that's an Ashen Rider right there. That's a good name.
Yeah, okay, that's fair, totally. And you have the big reveal mid-fight where somebody hits them and you have a knock their helmet off in a
Ooh,
reveal. It's like the villain from the last arc that they killed, but they're like desiccated and dead, eyes glowing.
that's a cool fight. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And you do this blade barrier stuff on whoever got the killing blow.
On what? I'm sorry, you cut out for a sec.
You do the blade barrier on whoever got the killing blow, like whoever
Oh, yes.
officially put them in the grave or something. That's like who they are targeting.
Right.
A lot of neat stuff you could do there.
Yeah. Okay, but moving on, they have a mount ability. If the Ashen Rider isn't mounted, it could use a bonus action to magically teleport onto the creature serving as its mount, provided the Ashen Rider and the mount are on the same plane of existence. When it teleports, it appears astride the mount along with all of its equipment. Well mounted and not incapacitated, the Ashen Rider can't be surprised, and both it and its mount have advantage on Dex save in throws. If the Ashen Rider is reduced to 0 hit points while riding the mount is also reduced to 0 hit points as well. So it kind of makes them act as one. It's just kind of like one big stat block. It's just kind of codifying in why they'll often be mounted even if they're dismounted. To give a lot of movement, flying, things like that. Though being mounted doesn't really help them too much in combat other than the maneuverability. And their mounts are the typical mounts, the flying lions or not boars,
Wing
bulls.
bowls.
Wing bowls, yeah, are like a bit lower level than challenge rating 4, which means your party could just target them and just blow through them really fast.
They at least have good HP for a
Yeah.
mount. I mean, 114 for the winged lion, 95 for the winged bull. Their AC's pretty darn low at 13 and 12. And, you know, you're right. They could definitely get through them, but that's potentially an entire turn that your party is focusing on the mount instead of the Ashen Rider. So, you know, it gets some benefit out of that. Obviously, it doesn't have a way of getting its mount back, or at least nothing we've talked about yet. And spoiler,
Mhm.
they don't. So to me, that's okay that they're pretty easy to kill. It's not like it's, 15 HP and you literally just have to dedicate a single attack to the mount.
Um, yeah, and as I said, it's like even if you do kill the mount, it doesn't change much, especially if the Ashen Rider's not trying to run away. Because I mean, sure, with the mount they have flying and higher movement speed, but I guess you could be mean about it. They circle around, throwing their bolt of ash down, which is a ranged attack.
In which case,
Cutting off.
then focusing on the mount first
It makes
might
sense.
be
Okay,
might be
that could be a good
beneficial.
opening.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, kind of like unofficial phases of the fight. Of like it's kind of like this kind of like sort of mini boss material all over it, and it's riding around, circling 120 feet in the air, throwing down these bolts of ash, doing 40-10 necrotic damage. And we'll get to the attacks in a second here. And the party just shoot at the mount. It dies, plummets to the ground. Maybe do something to negate its fall damage so it doesn't just destroy it
It just
outright.
doesn't take fall damage.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yep.
Why? I don't care. Because it doesn't, because the, 120, so it would take, would it be 12d6? Am I doing my math right? Because that's fall damage, right? I can't remember if fall damage is just 10 feet. I don't know. We haven't played for a month and a half.
For every, it's a d6 for every 10 feet.
Okay. So yes, it takes 12 d6. What it would
caps
take.
at 20, I think. So, okay. That's actually not terrible for this challenge rating. But either way, just, let it be immune to this fall damage, whatever.
Right.
It crashes into the earth, leaves a big crater. Everyone's
It's
like,
fine.
Is it dead? Is it dead? And then it soared into the ground, gets itself on its feet. And that's the big reveal then because its helmet fell and blew off in the process.
This is
And
dramatic.
and then you see it was the villain from the last arc. And they then can't get a free, because it's cinematic at this point, just a free spellcasting and cast blade barrier on themselves with who's ever with them. And then it's kind of like the phase 2 of the fight.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then switches to its ashen blade as well. I mean, just that
Yeah.
the scene's playing out in my head and I'm excited.
Right. Okay, so speaking of all those attacks, their actions, they have a multi-attack. They make 3 attacks with their Ashen Blade or 2 attacks with their Bolt of Ash. The Ashen Blade is a +10 to hit, reach of 10 feet for 1 target. On a hit, it does 2d8 plus 5 slashing damage plus 2d12 radiant damage. So averages 27. Yeah, I did that math right. Yeah, 27 damage. And does that 3 times. So pretty heavy hitter.
Yeah,
Or it's
pretty. I'd say on par for challenge rating 16.
Yeah, it's like nothing super exciting or spectacular, but they're a threat, being like locked alone in a blade barrier with these guys, and it gets 3 Ashen Blade attacks on you. That's scary.
Yep.
Or then the Bolt of Ash, range spell attack plus 10 to hit. There we go. Range of 120 feet, and it does 4d10 necrotic damage, and the target can't regain hit points until the start of the Ashen Rider's next turn. So yeah, if it does 2 of those, average of 44 in a turn. Not being able to regain hit points kind of sucks,
Yeah,
especially
and
if you down them.
this is a time where I would like to see in the multi attack the specification that you could do either a Ashen Blade attack or the Bolt of Ash, because just rules is written, which in these scenarios I generally don't follow. It says it makes 3 attacks with its Ashen Blade or 2 attacks with its Bolt of Ash, which basically means you're committing to either ranged or melee weapon
Yeah,
attacks, every time. When to me, that's just silly. I like the idea of being able to kind of switch it up, and however you want to balance for that, like maybe it could replace one of its Ashen Blade attacks with a Bolt of Ash. Something like that could make for some pretty nasty combos, like knocking somebody to 0 and then hitting them with Bolt of Ash while they're on the ground. Officially, it would have disadvantage if they're prone and whatever, because ranged spell attacks are funny.
but if they're
Um,
unconscious, it's advantage.
Hey, yeah. So does this just cancel out then?
Pretty
Okay.
sure.
Well, I know they just
I
cancel out
think.
if there's advantage
Yeah.
and disadvantage.
Right.
That's basic stuff. But
Right.
either way, that just could be a kind of a cool and terrifying moment, because obviously the method of yo-yoing doesn't work very well if you can't regain HP, and it just makes for a very, very scary scenario.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That could be cool. Like, yeah, they hit him with the sword, and the person collapses, and they're mounted, and they just like point the hand at the ground, and that bolt shoots out and just electrocutes them and courses through, causing them not to fail. Then the mount just kind of steps on them as they walk to the next person, and then your
Oof.
healers are like running up, like, oh shit, let's get them up, and start trying to heal, and nothing happens. And then there's that big fear: is like, did they just die?
Yeah. Yep. Super scary. Very good combination of abilities. I think it's interesting that this is a creature that can do both radiant and necrotic damage. Very fitting from this idea of a fallen celestial, corrupted celestial. So I think that's something that the players kind of paying attention might find that really interesting as well. I mean, there's a lot of a meat on the bones for something like that. It's just, you don't see it very often.
Right. Okay, and then they have legendary actions, and this is going to wrap up their stat block. These work the same as any other legendary actions. They get 3 of them. They could do them between turns, basically at the end of another player's turn. And they regain them at the start of their normal turn. Usual stuff. So they have attack. The Ashen Rider can make an attack using its Ashen Blade or Bolt of Ash. So just extra attacks in there, up the damage, stop healing. So even if I change in anything raw, they could still kind of do that.
Do
we
that
were just
combo.
talking about.
Yep.
Coordinated assault. This costs 2 actions. The Ashen Rider makes an attack using its Ashen Blade or Bolt of Ash, and then its mount can use its reaction to make a melee weapon attack. So again, just more damage. Or reduce to ash. This costs 3. So if they do this, no other legendary actions this turn. The Ashen Rider targets a creature it can see within 60 feet. The target must make a DC 18 con save, or it takes 5d10 necrotic damage. That's an average of 27. And its hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the necrotic damage taken. So that is a heavy hit point maximum reduction. And we've definitely talked about this recently. I don't remember on what. The reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. If the target's hit point maximum is reduced to 0, its body and everything is wearing and carrying, except for magic items, are reduced to ash. A creature reduced to ash can't be revived by any means short of a wish spell. So this, I mean, it's high damage, though it would be more to just do extra attacks. Do you like 3 more Ashen Blade attacks is going to outdamage the reduced to ash. And this one fits in a weird thing. I'm blanking on what the monster was. There was another monster we talked about recently that kind of felt.
I think it was the plant
It was
monster,
the drowned.
wasn't it?
It was the drowned.
Oh,
things.
drowned. Okay.
Yeah, where they had reduce maximum HP, and the plant monster might have done it as well.
It doesn't
Body
matter.
snatcher.
Sure.
A lot of them do it. These guys are definitely set up to be kind of like end of encounter day fights. They have legendary actions. They're legendary creatures. They're kind of the boss of the day usually, unless you're playing like a super heroic epic.
Yeah, I could see at level 20 or something fighting like one of these to start your day. But yes, you're right.
And using the heroic rest rules and stuff like that. And so reducing the maximum hit points down, even by like a really big chunk, like 27 average, is a lot. The fact it just comes back on a long rest is probably not going to actually be all that impactful for the character, unless you get to the point where you're just killing them outright.
Yeah, and even on a, let's say, if we're talking about around level 14 or so, even by that point, I expect to have wizards to have at triple digits or near triple digits HP. Maybe a little bit below, but you're still talking about maybe needing to do this 3 rounds in a row and them failing and taking the average damage, which that should about happen, in order to be worried about getting somebody to 0. Obviously, getting them pretty low is scary, but healing's just not effective enough that you're going to be getting people back up to what their hit point max is once they've been reduced.
Going to be, the next point. There's also other ways, if it does start coming to that. There are also spells that restore.
I think it's greater restoration.
Yeah, I was just pulling up.
Level.
Yeah, that's true. I thought it was lesser, and I just pulled it up. It is not lesser.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to use a 5th level spell on that, if you're talking like you got a life cleric, that's a time where it might make sense because they do have the ability to heal people and it is worthwhile. But otherwise, the heal spell, does that reduce or does that get rid of any of these hit point max things? Because that's another one that could come.
7 spell though, but yeah, greater restoration definitely does. Heal is that's level 7, right? If I'm remembering, that's 6.
Yeah, it just regains 70 HP. 70. It does not change hit point max.
No.
So that's if you're saving that as like your big guns for your healer, then that could be a problem if they get reduced lower than 70.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about very specific scenarios. Most of the time, reducing HP max just isn't really that scary. Not as much as it feels like it should be.
Unless it's on like trash mobs. Mobs. That's like an MMO term, but like non-end of day encounters. When it's very likely to be like the final encounter of the day and you're going to get a long rest after this, it's very unlikely it's going to matter. I guess it's maybe more like psychologically scary to the player. And maybe that's worth it itself. But for all 3 legendary actions, can't do any other on the turn. Is that worth it?
I think the issue is that they use HP reduction as a way to gate off very, very, very bad things from happening. This isn't a debuff. This is turning someone into ash, but it can't just do that. It's not fun to be turned into ash. So you have to gate it behind this very, very difficult thing to overcome. Yeah. Yeah.
That's, once again, rest in peace, Saucy.
Rest in peace, Saucy. Because what I was thinking is like, what would make this make more sense? Because it's not a debuff. It's reducing someone to ash. Is like, if you kill them with it, they get reduced to ash. But then I remembered, it's not fun to get reduced to ash. So I decided not to mention it. It's not fun.
Why would they even put that in there? They could have just not put that in there.
Right.
Not put what in.
They could have just gave it something else, like the not reduce to ash if it does to 0. Because
because it's cool as hell. Also, I love it. Just don't do it.
But no one's gonna even know about it.
It could be something that it does to, again, thinking of that psychological aspect. Yes, they reduce an NPC to ash. I mean, we were just talking about the idea of them kind of fighting with a different, I don't know, more powerful NPC. If this is how they're Man, I guess I don't know. I'm fighting with that as well because then you're going outside of the stat block. I was thinking like, you don't have to worry about the hit point max portion reducing to 0. You can just say that at the end of the fight they get reduced to ash to kind of show that power off. But then you're going outside of the stat block, so we're still saying it's just not that great of an ability.
I guess. Or if this happens early on, a really powerful NPC to your party could be challenge rating 4.
Oh geez, that'd be very
You
early,
know,
but
yeah. And so it could just happen as is. They get in the fight, and the NPC goes and attacks them and hits it and plunks off the armor. And the Ashen Rider stares down at them and like grabs their face with a hand, and the guy just screams and crumbles to ash. And
That's true.
It's like, okay, that's definitely gonna.
You can also shrug and be
how
like,
scary this is.
I did max damage.
Right.
Yeah, they had 50 HP. Yep, got it all in one.
All right, yeah, I say, yeah, rolled in quotes there. Hi. There's plenty of ways around to keep it basically as raw as the stat block to telegraph how incredibly powerful this enemy is, and to show your party that it has the ability to do this. So when they do actually fight it, it's like, all right, shit, be careful, because they're not going to know the specifics most likely either. They just know like, all right, that's a thing that could happen. That's really scary.
It's probably good to showcase this so that way when your party does see it, I won't, not every scenario, but there's a lot of times where if this is a boss fight that has been built up to, you probably want to showcase this at least one time, either from an important NPC or literally anything. I mean, just have it reduce some creature to ash so that way they know it's possible.
It's the start of a fight, like a squirrel runs by.
Right.
Like, squirrel.
Eyes flare up with anger and rage and the pain of thousands of years, and the squirrel is reduced to ash.
Just falls, the ash sprinkles down on the party.
So we're saying this is also good in a comedy style game as well. You can use it in anything.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise reduced to ash. I mean, it's not something with all the other changes we've talked about making, with all the other tweaks. I also would probably just leave this as is because, as Will said, it's not fun to be reduced to ash, especially when it takes a wish spell to get somebody back. It ups tension, right. But is it good tension? Is that adding something to your game? Most of the time, I feel like the answer is no. Other way that this could be used is to like actually have this be kind of awful though, is if your party runs, let's say it does target the fighter and they do a terrible job of actually countering this horrible creature, and it kills the fighter. It gets them to 0. It gets them to death saves. It could still be using this reduced to ash, maybe even before it like kills them, and reduce the fighter to ash, and then it leaves, fight's over, and okay, maybe now it's a quest to get a wish spell, bring them back. There's options there that you could use it if you really want to, but like for a normal fight, I'm just going to stay away from trying to reduce anybody to 0.
And those options feel really mean.
And that's okay sometimes, is what I'm saying. It's like sometimes it's okay. Yeah. When I mean, you can talk about it with your player beforehand. Like that's always an option.
Okay.
I mean, not
just
saying
in your
like
private chat, just like, hey, buddy, you're so fucked. And what? Why? You're so fucked. Next session, you're done. You're donezo, buddy. Talk with your players.
Not really the conversation I meant. Is more of like, if this is something you've built up, if you like, they know that this creature is tracking them, telling them like, hey, the consequence of failing this is potentially being reduced to ash, and the only way to bring you back is a wish spell. If like, there are players who love that. They're like, that's amazing. But the stakes are so high, and that's a time when you use it. If I say that to somebody and they're like, whoa, that's horrible, I don't want to permanently die, I like my character, that's when you definitely do it. You double down. You say, no, I'm killing you. I'm turning you to ash. But so that's what I mean by talking it over. I mean, just as long as you're on the same wavelength as the player, it's okay sometimes.
Sure. To pull it off, then I think you need to up the damage, because if you're at the level fight and challenge rating 16, reducing maximum HP by 27 each turn, once per round, basically, because it's all 3 legendary actions to do it. You're just gonna have to kind of like grind it on him over and over and over again. You're gonna have
I
to get this
know.
off 3, 4, 5 times
It's dope.
to actually get to that effect.
A way to make that more reasonable, instead of even upping the damage on Reduce to Ash, is to add this rider to Bolt of Ash, but include like a DC 18 con saving throw. So that way when Bolt of Ash hits, make that con saving throw. If they fail, then their HP is reduced by 40-10. Sorry, their max HP. But that's if you want to get mean. So I think this can be a really good fight without ever, a really tense fight without ever needing to even touch the reduce to 0 mechanic.
Right. It seems like one that's for inspiration for powerful cinematic moments. And I'm starting to think we've always been like really, really harsh on these abilities for like like 3-4 years now. It's been 3 years we've been doing the
4.
podcast. 4, Jesus. Okay. 4
16 years.
That we've been doing this. And we always get really harsh on like abilities like that, where it seems like that's like cool, but it's never gonna actually have the effect you want it to. And like I'm finally starting to click, like, okay, maybe those are there as inspirational moments of cool showing off of abilities.
That's still bad. I'll still be, yes, because either make it a possible thing to happen in combat, or just give in the description, or give like a non-stat block thing for them to do that can showcase those things. I don't know. It shouldn't, a stat block should never feel like inspiration for something cool. It should be the something cool.
I don't know. Like even reading through this, we came up with a lot of really cool kind of cinematic moments about fighting this guy and introducing him,
using all of the like the actual stat blocks or tweaks to the stat block that we'd put in there.
I don't know. I don't hate it as much as you do, but that's fine.
No, we have to agree on everything.
Right.
We can't end the episode until we all agree on the topic.
Right.
Oh my God. We're already verbose. Like, there's already long episodes. Each one's 3-hour debates. We have to bring in a moderator.
Right. We get stuck on something where we're both on just like opposite ends, and it gets into multiple parts.
Ooh, that can be a new Patreon tier. Join our Patreon, and for however much a month, you can join our episodes and be our moderator and decide who wins at the end of episodes.
Okay.
Be horrible not doing that.
No. But that is the Ashen Rider stat block. I think as we went through, we did a pretty good job covering how to use it, what we like, what we don't like, things like that. Did you guys have anything else to talk on or thoughts about this guy?
I don't think we mentioned the art, as that is super cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and did we want to say anything about the mounts at all?
Oh, we should, yeah, because they have let me pull it up.
Yeah, do that, because
they have the potential to attack within the stat block.
Yes, and I still need some time to think of a good transition into our whoever's going to be sponsoring this episode.
Okay. I'm gonna leave that in. So yeah, their main one's probably the Winged Lion. That's what's in the art. It's a challenge rating 4, armor class of 13, hit points of 114. Stats are kind of all across the board. It's what you would expect. Physical stats high, mental stats lower, except for wisdom's okay. It understands Celestial but can't speak. It has a Pounce ability if the lion moves at least 20 feet straight toward a creature and then hits it with a claw attack on the same turn. The target must succeed on a DC 15 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. If the target is prone, the lion can make 1 bite attack against it as a bonus action. So a lot of these kind of like big cat type creatures have that Pounce. And then they could either bite or claw, +7 to hit for the bite, 2d10 plus 5 piercing damage, or the claw +7 to hit, 2d8 plus 5 piercing damage.
Yeah, I mean, challenge rating 4, but I mean, this is some pretty good damage. It's even for a mid-high level party, this is going to be something that you don't want to ignore.
Kinda. And sorry, real quick, I skipped over speed, which since we're talking about this in the context of being a mount, it matters. Speed of 60 feet and a fly speed of 60 feet. The reason I said kinda, because if you remember with mounting, the mount rules are weird, where it's saying if you take direct control of the mount, you have its speed and it moves with you, but it does not get its own attack. Or you can let it get its attack and then you don't control it. That's kind of very much PC focused.
Yeah.
Because in this one, it's the DM controlling both anyways. I think I would almost let like the winged lion do its stuff. Like it shares its speed with the Ashen Rider, but it could also attack. I don't know if I would give it a separate initiative. Probably just like do it
Just
at, like immediately after the Ashen Rider. That way, it's like
yeah.
its pounce could actually go off.
Yeah, I wouldn't let the poor wording of mounts or the intent of the mounted rules, which is more again to kind of affect PCs, be a hindrance to
Hmm.
actually getting use out of this.
Yeah, and actually, the flavor text supports that. Some legends suggest the mount is actually a physical manifestation of the Archon's will, allowing the pair to act with a single mind. There's nothing in the stat block about it, but that's enough for me.
Yep.
Just do it.
And then the bowl is pretty straightforward as well. Just challenge rating 4 as well. Armor class 12, HP 95, same speed of 60 and then 60 flying. It has its gore attack, which is +7 to hit, and then does 2d12 +5. And then it has its charge ability, where if it moves 20 feet, instead of getting an additional attack, it can, and knocking somebody prone potentially, it just does an additional 3d12 piercing damage on its gore attack, which brings it up to 5d12 +5 piercing damage. So that's definitely pretty scary.
Definitely. And winged bowl, you said?
Winged
Does
bowl,
the
yep.
does the charge knock him prone? I'm pulling it up now. I should have had it
No,
up.
charge does not knock them prone.
Okay, that would be cool, like thematically cool if it did. But I get why, because it does so much damage, anyways. Um, yeah, I guess if there's definitely a decision as the DM to make, does the mount go immediately after the Ashen Rider or just on the Ashen Rider's turn, based on what you want it to do? Because that's going to really, really matter for the winged lion, because it can knock things prone. You could swoop in, knock them prone if it could go first, and then the Ashen Rider gets 3 advantage Ashen Sword attacks or Ashen Blade attacks, which is devastating.
Yeah, I
If
mean
it goes
you're right.
after that, knocking prone, it's not going to matter as much because it's like the last thing to happen. Maybe some legendary actions might go off before that character could go and stand up, but
I would probably have it go immediately at the immediately after their turn, which the movement part, I guess this is
that's
odd.
where it gets, yeah.
It is definitely weird, but I would give the oh man, that hurts my head. I don't know. It's like they should be on a part of the same initiative, but the pounce could just happen from the movement that the Ashen Rider starts.
I would just give them the same initiative. I'm pretty sure there's various like summon and companion abilities through like some like classes, PC classes that are like that, where it's like they act on your turn. And
Right.
it's like up to you. You just no command to do it, and so they get it before, during, or after.
Yeah, I guess this is at the point where knocking somebody prone and getting 3 advantage attacks on them at minimum, it's like it's bad, but like not the worst thing in this creature's stat block. Like most
No,
punishing. So
right,
it's more reason to focus on the lion or the bull or whatever, because like, hey, that mount
right,
is causing problems.
right. And I mean, it's a DC
Alternatively,
15 strength.
yeah,
Sorry, go on. Well,
that does it. They're not that great. Alternatively, you can just hop off the lion, and now the lion run around the battlefield doing whatever it wants. No more mount rolls.
It's
that's
true.
true.
That's true. I mean, once you talk about them landing, there's really, as I think Ellie you mentioned earlier on, there's no benefit that they specifically get out of being mounted besides the advantage on dexterity saving throws
And the speed. They just have
and
really
the
good
speed
speed,
and the speed.
but they can just pop if that matters. They could just bonus action, which doesn't really have any other use for except for compelled duel, to just teleport onto the mount instantaneously and then get its 60-foot speed.
And it also, when
So
you divide and conquer, that works pretty well. The Ashen Rider can hop off and beat the brakes off your paladin while the lion goes and mauls the wizard in the back. It's like, oh, I'm going to hide
right,
away
keeps
from
them
your
busy.
aura. It's like, no, you're not. You're going to get mauled by a lion.
Decision has been made. It's the lion.
Right. So yeah, definitely a lot of cool things you could set up with that.
And during this fight, I think one of the most important things is the music that you use. And where better to get epic music other than Bardly? Bardly allows you to seamlessly add music to your games as you choose from hundreds of tracks based on setting and mood to bring your players into the game. You can share the experience wherever your players are, as the DM can send a link to players and they'll be able to hear the music you play as you play it. So you'll never need to search for music again, just be able to put in like, I'm in the forest and we're doing a chase, and boom, have a bunch of different options. And you can get 50% off your first 3 months using the code MNM50. MNM50. Boom, big text on the screen. Pew, pew, and it gets bigger and then smaller and bigger and then smaller.
It's pretty just plain static text along the bottom.
Fine. So check out Bardly, and if you want to check out other ways to support the show, you can head on over to monstersandmulticlass.com/support, where you can see our other affiliates. And thank you, as always, to our patrons: Ed G, Muddleweight, Brian H, Craig A, Isaac M, Luca Lebon, Jeth W, Star Shinobi, Vincent M, Bob F, Joe P, Rick D, Sensible D20, Tyler S, Gray, Barons, Adam A, Rob K, and Gray. You all are awesome, and if you want to be a Patreon, you can get early access to the episodes, usually, like most of the time, and also see things like campaign notes and other miscellaneous things that we want to throw up there, maps and counter designs, things like that. So I think that's everything. Oh, like, subscribe, comment, leave a comment as to how you would use the Ashen Rider, and really any of your thoughts on like the 20 different things we talked about with this one. This turned into a meaty stat block.
Mm-hmm. All right, and as always, thanks for watching.